You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast.
What is happening, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is Friday the 13th. Y'all be careful out there. Crazy on the 13th. Hopefully everybody is having a great Friday, and hopefully you're going into a great weekend. I'm looking, man. I don't even know if Candace is going to have a show today. There's nothing posted. You guys let me know if you guys hear anything else. We got some other things to talk about regardless. But we do have a full night at 7 p.m. I will be doing a members only show. And then at 8 p.m., we will have Lady Luck on. So we'll be going heavy and long into the night. And that's just the way that we're going to do things today. So I do want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. Say hi to A. Lewis. We got Ben, the Mod King over there. Lori Loves, Gina Faye, Lori Matthews, Save Smiles, 06 Chevy Guy, Bella Italia. You guys in your screen names. Cool stuff. 8763, Save Smiles, Pam, and a bunch of others. If you haven't said hello yet, Lori Love, USA, and a bunch of other ones. Number one, I want to say hi to everybody out there. Thank you for joining. Make sure you like, subscribe. Thank you to all our moderators out there. We appreciate what you do. And because of popular demand, we have Jen, the producer, back on as well. There was lots of folks, Jen, yesterday that they loved having you on, and I love having you on too. You know, we were talking about how much easier it is to do the things that you need to do the way that StreamYard's set up if you're like part of the chat anyhow, and I love it. So, I think what you should do, Jen, is just take a minute and introduce yourself to everybody out there.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for the wonderful introduction. For those of you who know me, I ran a podcast for military first responders and members of the intelligence community for about 8.5 years before podcasting was cool. Took a break because of some craziness. And I've been an avid watcher of Dangerous Liberty podcast and couldn't resist the chance to come back and work with Gary in the background. So I appreciate everybody being so kind and being so patient while I go through and try to learn this system. So, hey, everybody.
Awesome. All right. So Ben is saying, and I have never been more relieved. Ben is telling us there's no show today, and I am very happy about that. We're going to, you know what? I want to have a discussion with you guys. I'm going to play a couple things, and I'm going to go through some conversations. Jen has some things that she wants to share with you today as far as an update on the Iran situation. And I want to have a longer discussion regarding that. Real quick, I am going to share a screen here, and let's go to this one right here, because I thought this interview with Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly was pretty interesting. And I think it does fill in some information gaps about the timing of everything that took place in Iran, if this is true. And I think I don't see why it wouldn't be true. So we will play this, and I want to hear all of your thoughts on what Bill O'Reilly especially has to say regarding this.
How do you read this war, what we're doing, what is coming, and what it's going to mean?
Okay, so a big gamble by President Trump, a big dice roll. And he reached a period in time, in history, where the CIA, NSA, all of our intel jibed with the United Nations and said, look, we knocked out a lot of their nuclear capacity in June of last year, but they have satellites and are close to being able to put together 10 nuclear bombs. Okay, 10. And so that intel came in, and that obviously got Trump's attention. So there was a massive discussion for months about, all right, what do we do? Because what the mullahs did was they decentralized their nuke making capacity. They spread it out rather than having it in one place. So then Mossad went in, and Netanyahu and I don't think the Trump administration is going to mind me saying this, even though it hasn't been made public, but I'm a reporter and I have the information. So Mossad went in and said, look, on this Saturday, the Ayatollah and 25 of his thugs are going to be in this place at this time. So what do you want to do? Now, that was after 3 months of negotiations with the Iranians to stop their nuclear weapons program. And the last negotiation in Geneva, Switzerland, the guy, the foreign minister of Iran, walks in and says, you know what? We're not stopping. Blank you. We don't care what you say. We're not stopping. And Witkoff, our chief U.S. negotiator, had a report back to Trump. So that's the information Trump has. Number one, they're close to 10 bombs. Number two, they're all going to be drinking tea on Saturday morning in this spot. And number three, they're saying blank you to the U.S. government. They're not going to stop. That's how the decision was made. Now, ancillary, everybody knows the midterms are coming up, and Americans will largely vote on emotion and how they are feeling about their financial portfolio. But the president believes that he will be victorious in the next month or so. Puts us into April, puts us into China with Xi. And he believes he's going to have momentum after basically dismantling Iran, because that's what they're doing now. They're just wiping out its capacity to do anything, which is not easy. And that's why you're seeing the short-term pain. Now, people believe what they want to believe, and the president is no exception. If it comes his way, then he becomes a great president, which he wants, his legacy. If it doesn't, then Republicans will probably lose in November. So that's where we are.
So I thought this was pretty interesting.
How do you read this war?
This is the first time that we heard anything regarding the exact timing of these strikes. Now, we did understand now I got audio playing somewhere. All right, let's make this audio stop. But that's the first time that we've heard anything as far as the exact timing and how that came about. We did know that there was intelligence letting the U.S. know that Ayatollah Khomeini was going to be at a certain place at a certain time, and so we were able to make those strikes. Now, given that we have this information, and given the totality of the circumstances, we have an Iranian regime that Trump has said, you are not getting nuclear weapons, period. You're going to end your nuclear weapons program. That was a red line for the Trump administration. They gave them a 10-day window. It was more than that. They were going through the negotiations, and then they come back and tell us that they are not going to end their weapons program, their nuclear weapons program. And then we get this information saying, hey, here's the key leaders going to be in one place at one time. You know, I think it was the right thing to do. I'd like to know what you guys think. And I also want to bring up, and this kind of encapsulates this entire discussion. So I want to share this conversation that I had with somebody on X today. And I usually don't get into these back and forths too often. It's not productive on X, right? So you're not going to see me arguing a lot. I'll usually post. I may comment on one or two things if somebody says something stupid or in the affirmative or whatever else. But I put up this post talking about, and we'll go through this as well, the Candace cult proves their ignorance. This post and subsequent Grok replies perfectly sums up the Candace cult's logic and complete lack thereof. 95% of them don't know the basic facts of the incident. Yesterday, a guy claimed I was a Fed because I was given roof access at UVU. He still doesn't know the roof access is a public walkway. And this is an interesting thing to behold because you have this guy, he says, debunk this. There was no bullet to link the gun to the death of Charlie Kirk. Literally no bullet. The gun could be any gun. If you can't debunk it, you have to switch sides. And then Artie Troll says, who told you there was no bullet? Give a citation. Grok, was a bullet recovered from Charlie's neck? Give a quote and citation. And of course, we go down the normal thing. Yes, according to the TPUSA spokesman, Andrew Colvett, the coroner found a bullet lodged just beneath Charlie's skin. This guy didn't like Grok's reply. There's also been a lot of other reports on this. We know that there's a bullet. Clearly what we saw was a high-powered rifle impact. I mean, to me, it's just very obvious. He said, Erica Kirk debunked this. Confirm the statement with official records. Don't give misinformation. Erica Kirk has not debunked the account of the bullet lodging in Charlie Kirk's neck in September 21 New York Times interview. She described seeing the wound that ended his life. Neck per sheriff's warning on damage said that the bullet came. He blinked. And he goes on. He's trying to manipulate Grok into telling him exactly what he wants. He never quite gets there. But the fact is, this is what we're constantly dealing with when we're dealing with the candy coal. Like they don't even know the basic facts. Every time I get into these discussions with these people, they only know what they've been told, and a lot of it is just nonsense. And there's so much information that has been omitted that, of course, they're not coming to the right conclusion. But back to Spartan Jill, who completely changes the subject. She says, Gary, are you at least willing to admit that the only reason we attacked Iran is because of Israel? Trump lied to all of his supporters about no new wars. What was the imminent threat the U.S. was facing with Iran? Defend this, please. Said, no, I completely reject the idiotic claim that we only attacked Iran because of Israel. The ongoing and imminent threat was a nuclear Iran. Iran is directly responsible for killing hundreds of American soldiers and is the greatest sponsor of terror in the world. It's hard to take you people seriously when all you do is shriek Israel, Israel, Israel. I'm not shrieking Israel. You're going to sit there and say the only reason. I mean, how dumb is that statement? Forget about Israel. Just the different interactions that the U.S. has had with Iran directly, nothing to do with Israel. Like, I think we can all agree that it's been extremely problematic, to say the least. We didn't take out Soleimani because Israel told us to. We took out Soleimani because he was directly responsible for EFPs coming across the borders and killing hundreds and hundreds of Americans. He was also responsible for IRGC members coming across the border into Iraq and training insurgents on the Iranian side, and then having them ratline into Iraq. We knew this was happening. I've seen them on satellite imagery and drone imagery. I've watched it happen personally. I know these things were taking place. Iran, the only reason, one of the big reasons that we had so many casualties in Iraq was because of Iran. Now, independently, I will say that the U.S. never planned on winning the war. It was meant to be an occupational situation, which we're still there. We're still there in Iraq. So it's pretty crazy. But to sit there and say that we don't have legitimate issues, direct issues with Iran of what's going on and why we would want to go to war with them outside of any of Israel's influence. Like, it's just bonkers. You're just, I don't know, you're delusional. She goes on to say, I'm not shrieking Israel, but I'm asking what the imminent threat to the U.S. was. We have accused Iran of being close to being able to have nuclear weapons for years now. What was the imminent, especially when we bombed from the last year and set them back years? Can you answer that? Well, let's play the Candace game, since you just support her so much, which she does. I went through her timeline. She's all about Candace Owens and all of her other surrogates. She's reposting and commenting and everything else. I said, let's play the Candace game. Since you support her so much, prove that Iran wasn't an imminent threat. They've killed American soldiers with EFPs time and time again. They have killed Americans through terrorism. After Trump's ultimatum, they must cease their nuclear weapons program. They responded that they will continue to develop nuclear weapons. They regularly shout death to America. A man was just convicted of an Iranian plot to assassinate President Trump, so they're actively trying to kill the president of the United States. I asked Grok to provide links. I don't think he actually ever did. But all that stuff is corroborated by plenty of information. I think we all know that. And if you want me to bring some things up to support that, I'll happily will. We clearly got time to do that. Gary, you know how this works. It's not my obligation to prove Iran was an imminent threat. It's the administration's. They started the war. How are you not screaming into the wind, telling Trump to justify this action is truly imminent? Americans are dead because of this decision. Weird how the burden of proof requirement doesn't apply to Candace, whom you support. The reason I'm not screaming about any of this is I think the current actions are not only justified, but long overdue. And this is how I feel. And this is the reason I'm reading this. I want you guys to know how I feel about what's going on with Iran. And I want to hear from you guys that either support, disagree, and we can talk about everything else in between there. It's my opinion that a nuclear-armed IRGC is incompatible with global peace. They have attempted to kill a president. They have killed hundreds of American soldiers. They have promised to kill more Americans. It's the most justified war we have engaged in since World War II. War with Iran was always inevitable. The question is, do our children fight in Iran armed with nuclear weapons, or do we quit kicking the can down the road and address it now? And she goes on to talk about all this stuff. I was like, hey, look, if you want to come on, I offered her, send her a guest link. Hey, you can come on. I'm not going to sit here and play this game. My last statement to her was, I know, and now it ends because I have more productive things to do. Would you like a guest link? And I would have had her on. We could have talked through all these things, and I could have heard her perspective. But I do think that Iran is an imminent threat. Multiple different ways. They've proven to be an imminent threat. They could have 10 more guys that are here in the U.S., 100 more guys, 1,000 more guys. They have sleeper cells all over the United States that are ready to assassinate the president, commit terror, whatever else. I think we are in a really bad spot if we get to a point there we have an Iran with ballistic nuclear weapons. The threat to not only Israel, the threat to Europe, and obviously the threat to us if they have intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I don't think that the world benefits from an Iran. And we as an American people, if you have a country saying death to America, and now they are pursuing nuclear weapons, I think it is the responsibility of the president to put a stop to that. Matter of fact, I think ignoring it, like we've had so many other administrations do in the past, is irresponsible and is not looking out for the American people. And I understand the complexity and everybody's concerns of getting involved into another Middle East conflict. I get it. Trust me, I get it better than most people. Been there, done that. That being said, just like I do think, I wish we didn't have Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Because I think if we were able to just look at this situation independently, 90+% of the American people will be like, you know what, we need to address that. And yes, it may cost American lives now, but I think that is such a, if we put it off, instead of hundreds of potential lives, maybe even thousands, we could be talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if they get a nuclear weapon into this country. And that's where I'm at with this. You know, Jen, let me hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I am of the school of thought that this has been going on for far too long and that we should have had justice for the 241 service members killed in Beirut in 1983, for the 19 U.S. airmen that were killed in Khobar Towers in 1996, for the 603 U.S. troops that were killed in Iraq by Iranian-backed militias, the 3 U.S. service members killed in Jordan in 2024, not to mention, the abduction and murder of senior CIA official William F. Buckley in 1985, and the 444, the Americans that were held for 444 days that we still do not have justice for. So as far as I'm concerned, this was a long time coming.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, if there was no clearer of a threat and enemy in the world, like Iran was it. As a matter of fact, I mean, and here's the thing, like everybody talks about weapons of mass destruction. Like we went into Iraq. I believe that there actually was weapons of mass destruction. I still don't think it was a good predicate for us going into Iraq. And let's say there wasn't. But here's the thing, like that, because I keep hearing that thrown around all the time, where people are like, well, what about the weapons of mass destruction? Here we are in Iran. Like, we know, multiple different countries know, our inspectors have seen them. We know that they were developing nuclear weapons. They're saying they have nuclear weapons. So, like, the idea that this is just complete false pretense, like we had with going into Iraq, is just not the case. We have a clear and imminent threat. They're telling us what they're going to do. They have state-sponsored terrorism all over the world. They've killed Americans time and time again, just all the things that you've enumerated, and we could come up with hundreds of more. So, I think it's unfortunate. War is never good. You never know the outcome. I think between us, Israel, and any other, which, by the way, the UAE is getting involved, Qatar is getting involved, Saudi Arabia is getting involved. Like, I think between the coalition that we have, we can easily take down Iran. And, if they decide once we're done with them, they want to pick up the pieces out of the rubble and have a regime change, that's up to them. But what we do need to ensure is that their weapons capabilities are highly diminished and that they have zero capabilities when it comes to nuclear weapons. So, that's where I stand on it, folks. And I'd like to hear from you guys. So I'm going to go over here and look at some of the super chats. Gary and Joshua Carr is premiering a second episode, dive into Can DEI in 25 minutes, worth a watch maybe. Great idea, actually. Great idea. We will actually do that. That is great. Thank you, C. Souter, for becoming a YouTube member. We appreciate you. Paramount Tactical, I emailed you a short video of a woman who infiltrated the Iranian regime. They've been planning this for over a decade. Yeah, look, we have been prepping the objective for this, even if it was a contingency. But yeah, I mean, we've been prepping for a war with Iran for a really long time. I was part of different war games and war strategies that were directly, linked to Iran.
I heard that one of the guys that he was a Mossad agent that went over to Iran probably 20, 25 years ago and worked his way up through the IRGC was the one that actually gave information on where the original Ayatollah was when they did the strikes. And then they moved him, like the whole group moved, and then he gave information on where the second Ayatollah is, who is not expected to last much longer this week. So Mossad's had people in the IRGC for the last 20 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if the agency does too.
Yeah. I mean, they've conducted some pretty effective operations over there, even without our help. Or at least, if we were helping them, we did it covertly. Say Smile, where did you email that video to dlpodcast@ParamountTactical.com? Because I'm looking for it right now, and if I can find it, I will play it, but I'm not seeing it. One thing I will say today, because I've heard it floated around that Officer Tatum, we've all been saying that Officer Tatum does Candace's merch. I just want you to know, somebody brought it up in the comments, and I was like, I keep hearing that. I haven't seen anything that verifies that. If you actually go to his website, and then it takes you to his merch website, as in where he will make custom merchandise for you, it does say it in there, just so we're clear. So that is confirmed. I've been kind of avoiding that because I wasn't 100% sure, but it is confirmed. He does do Candace's merchandise. And where that's relevant to me, like all the other stuff in the past, I don't really care about. But let me tell you something. If Officer Tatum is the one printing those shirts, the Daddy's Home shirt, I find that super disgusting. So, and it does explain his hesitancy to really go after Candace. I mean, he's been touching her with kid gloves, saying, "Oh, well, we're family, we're this." No, you got a lot of money coming your way from Candace. That's what's happening. I mean, he's probably doing, probably $50,000 to $100,000 worth of merchandise a month, if not more. So, to me, that's a real issue. Say Smile, email that again to me again, to dlpodcast@ParamountTactical.com. And if I get it, I'll pull it up and we can watch it. Sorry, folks, you guys are just gonna have to suffer through me hacking. Thank you for becoming a member. Folks, again, if you want to support the channel, down in the description below, there is a link to become a member. We really appreciate that. That is what my thoughts around is behind most of our problems in the Middle East. And decades upon decade, Israel is next door and is helping with it. Otherwise, we would be using the country next to the problem. I agree. Like, I think a lot of the issues that we have in the Middle East, they are constantly provoking, causing issues. undermining peace between our country, Israel, and other countries, I think we would have a completely different relationship with all the Middle Eastern countries at large if Iran wasn't involved in meddling so hard in so many of those countries. That's a great point. I have lots of issues with Israel, but it has nothing to do with the Jews, just some of the practices over the years. But we do similar things I'm not happy with as well, but it is what it is. I agree. Our country has been put in a possible situation by global elites, our own intelligence, Netanyahu, and Iran. The city of London uses both sides to our detriment. Trump going after the cartels is proof he's going after it all. Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard to sit back and look at what is evil, what is not evil, what is controversial. Look, there's lots of things that you can even say is evil. Look, I don't necessarily agree with some of the ways that Israel has prosecuted the war in Gaza. The other thing is I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know everything that's going on over there and the intelligence that they have. And far be it for us to tell them how to prosecute a war with the information that we have access to. So there's that end of it. The other part of it is it's easy for us to sit back and judge how they prosecuted that war. I can tell you right now, though, if I had went through some of the things that they'd went through and saw men, women, and children brutally murdered, abducted, and then raped and tortured for what it was, they were held hostage. Some of those were held hostage for well over a year. So, if that was my family, and I've said this before too, like we had Americans there was actual Americans that were taken hostage. And if I was Biden or even Donald Trump, the moment that we get American hostages, like Israel could do whatever they want, but the moment we have American hostages involved, Gary Melton is president, we would have 3,000 tanks lined up on the border of Gaza and all the forces that we can muster behind them and like, hey, you know what? You got 12 hours. If you don't bring back our people, we're destroying everything, because chances are you're just going to kill them or you may have already killed them. If we don't get our people back, and if you killed them, we better get their remains back. And if you're not here in 12 hours, we are leveling everything. You think it's bad now. If Gary Melton was in charge and you took Americans hostages, I promise you there'd never be a country that would ever even think about taking Americans hostages as long as I was president. And that's how that should have been handled. And it was so much worse for the Israelis seeing what was done what's crazy to me is all these people that downplay that sit there and say, oh, that didn't actually happen. People weren't, raped. They weren't set on fire. They weren't like the atrocities that took place on October 7th are hard for most people to even understand. And for people to go around and try to say that it didn't happen, completely crazy. And they're the same people, the exact same people, by the way, they're right now saying that the attack in Michigan and the attack in Old Dominion were both false flags. Those were false flags, folks. That was Mossad. It was Mossad doing that. Like, just shut up. You're so dumb. Like,
not only that, Gary, that they're the same people that will tell you that the IRGC did not murder 30,000 Iranian people.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't, and I've said this before, I think it's probably hard for anybody to confirm the exact numbers on those, but we know it was a freaking lot. Like, that's what you can't say. Like, some of these pretend like it's not even a big deal what was taking place to the people protesting. And whether it's 30,000, 5,000, 2,000, 100, we know it's a lot more than that. But whether it's 40,000, I've heard 40,000, there's always going to be some hyperbole on both ends of the spectrum of the propaganda wars. But we know a lot of people were murdered, and they want to pretend that they're not. And on top of that, the crazy thing to me, these people that are like saying all these same things are like, I would never trust mainstream media for nothing. But these are the same people that as soon as anything comes out that's detrimental toward America or Israel from NBC, ABC, you name it, they're reposting it and saying it's proven, or direct information from the IRGC. Oh, this is proven. Here we go. Like, I'm not accepting that as fact. And these are the same people that if those same organizations actually reported on anything positive for the Trump administration or positive on anything that was against them. They would say, you can't trust them. They're the same people that were telling you to take the vaccine. It's unbelievable how inconsistent they are and how they cherry pick information, and they'll accept, it doesn't matter who it comes from. It can be an anonymous source. It can be from Iran, who we know has lied. It can be from Hamas, which we know goes on information operations and psychological operations all the time. And they will accept that without questioning it at all, as long as it freaking pushes their narrative and whatever their bias is. No discernment whatsoever. Yeah. I know.
I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I know you had a couple things that you wanted to share, and then we'll probably jump over and watch. We'll watch that show.
Well, one of the things that I was going to say real quick about the Israel situation, anyone who's out there talking smack about Israel should and what did and didn't happen on October 7th should be forced to go watch the videos.
Right.
And at the very least, they should go watch. There is a documentary that's been put out. I think it's called When We Dance Again. And it's about the Nova Music Festival. And it shows what they did to these people. I have never, I was shaking when I watched it. I have never been so enraged and heartbroken at the same time. And if you're going to sit here and say that that stuff didn't happen, they should be forced to watch all of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let me ask you this, because I do have questions. What I would like is a really good explanation of why that Israel didn't have a faster response. I have wondered and looked at some of the conspiracy theories if it was a lie hop operation, let it happen operation. What are your thoughts on that, Jen? I would think that would be horrific to imagine that Israel was guilty of that. I don't think, but what I would like a better explanation as to why the response wasn't quicker with that.
So I started doing a deep dive into that because I had questions myself.
Yeah.
And the wall that separates Israel from Gaza is manned by cameras. So they were in the middle of a religious holiday. And so they had very few soldiers on the border, and they were relying a lot on these cameras. And Gaza, the Hamas fighters were using drones to take out all of those cameras. So they didn't get like a huge, hey, warning right up front, what they normally would with those cameras or with having a fully staffed wall. That was a mistake. They should have never done that. And I think it's kind of like 9/11, where we had the intel, but people weren't talking to one another the way they should have. I do question a lot of what did take place. Also, there are reports, and there's a great interview, and I'll have to go find the guy's information, and maybe we could do a reaction video to it. But he talks about how a lot of the first responders and police units along that area, that corridor, were attacked as well. So they were being killed before they even knew what was going on. So they didn't have the people to respond, like the first responders were dead. So there was a lot to it that has never been put out on MSM. But I'll look up the interview, and it's just heartbreaking. And I've seen a lot of the actual videos that were uploaded to the website from the Hamas fighters, and it's not easy to watch.
Yeah.
It will definitely change a person, because it's one thing to see war videos or seeing declassified military images of trucks blowing up, or even, like the Warthog coming in and spraying people on the ground. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. But this was old women. They were raping and murdering people. They were burning babies. It's so disturbing and One of my biggest complaints about, well, two of them, the way Israel handled the response. One, I don't think it was fast enough, and I don't think it was strong enough. And they were losing the war of propaganda. They were not fighting back in the propaganda, and that's something that we as Americans cannot allow these people to twist what's going on over in Iran and use that propaganda against our military. So hopefully lessons learned on that aspect.
Yeah, no, I've seen videos where, you know, a one of the insurgents came over and was actually, you know, beheading people with a garden hoe. I watched multiple videos of that guy doing that. He knocked them out, knocked them down, and then just, I mean, it's horrific. So look, it happened, folks. I'm sure there's some exaggerations that can be tracked back, but it's the hate Israel first people, the anti-Semitics, is they will take the little things like this and like, oh, you can't prove that, so that part of it's a lie. You know, you don't have to exaggerate anything. You can look at what we know took place there, and I do think that's probably worth doing a deep dive that we can take a look into, Jen, and look at what Israel's response was to all this, and quite frankly, confirm or deny. You know, if there was any malfeasance there, to say the least. I hope there wasn't, and I think that would be horrific if that took place. But we'll see. Thank you, Janet, for becoming a member, and K Pasto for becoming a member. We appreciate you. I know, Jen, you had a couple other things that you wanted to bring up real quick.
Yeah, so I'm assuming most people heard that 4 U.S. airmen were killed in the KC-135 mishap yesterday. It was not shot down. It was not friendly fire or enemy fire. There was some kind of issue with linking up with another jet or a midair collision. But unfortunately, there were actually 6 airmen that were killed. So they did get confirmation of that late last night, early this morning, which is just heartbreaking. So please keep their families and friends and brothers and sisters in arms in your prayers. Also, 2,500 U.S. Marines just got deployed to the Middle East. So they are going to, I think, try to take on Hezbollah targets, as well as adding reinforcements to our allies in the Middle East. And a large portion of them are going to protect the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, of course, is just bombing, indiscriminately. Everybody. Now they have stated that they are targeting Gulf shipping and energy infrastructure. So basically paralyzing all of their neighbors, which is pissing off all of their neighbors. So if nothing else, Iran has brought together everyone in the Middle East to fight against them.
Yep.
The IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Association, is trying to broker a new nuclear agreement between the U.S. and Iran. I don't know how well that's going, since the last time Witkoff and the IRGC representatives were in the same room. They walked in and said, we have enough enriched uranium for 10 nuclear weapons, and that just shut down everything. So we'll see what the IAEA has to say. Of course, the new Khamenei he lost a leg and not expected to last the week. I was watching 2C TV. He's Iranian that lives in the UK. His dad is in Iran on the ground. So they get a lot of real-time news, and they are reporting that he may have already expired, which would be fantastic. So those are the big kind of news events that are going on right now. And then I think I told you earlier, I did ask ChatGPT if it thought that regime change was possible. And oddly enough, ChatGPT said yes. However, they think that it thinks that it may take a little bit longer than weeks. So I can tell you, I'm not going to be happy if this continues for a lot longer.
Look. Look, I'm torn over that. I'm sure many of you in the comments are as well when it comes to this. Like, I would rather this last longer than it needs to, and for us to see it through to completion, as opposed to do something half-ass and just set ourselves up for additional and or longer conflict in the future.
Agreed.
So I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't know. There's what I can tell you though. One thing that does give me some confidence, and I meant to say this to the last show, Pete Hegseth, man. I have been so impressed. I think Pete Hegseth has been the best Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War, as we know he is now called, in my lifetime for sure. And, we've been throwing around a lot of things about like Rubio, and now everybody's joking around and saying Erica Kirk, Rubio Kirk, or, JD and Rubio. Honestly, I think Pete Hegseth would potentially be a great president. I like him more than JD Vance or Marco Rubio, to be honest with you. And I think Rubio would be a great vice president. I don't really see him as presidential material, but the more I watch Pete Hegseth up there and his just love for this country. And by the way, he was attached to 187 Infantry, which is where I started my military journey before I went SF. I was at 187 Rakasans at Fort Campbell, and he actually has a tattoo of our old shield on there. So anyways, I think that's pretty cool. And he was just recently at the Rakasans benching 315 pounds, which he's not. I can bench well over 315, but for his size, he's probably maybe 200 pounds. For him to be able to put up 315, that's pretty impressive. That's what we need.
I got to meet him and have lunch with him probably about, I'm going to say maybe 10, 11 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Out in Arizona. Yeah. When he was over Concerned Veterans of America.
Yep.
I got to sit down and have lunch with him out in Scottsdale, and he was a very nice man.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how was he in person?
Very humble, very nice, very soft-spoken, but very much supportive of our troops and our veterans, which I have a lot of respect for. But I'm going to throw my ticket out, and I'm wondering what you guys think. I'm thinking,
oh dear God,
Raising Cane and Marco Rubio.
Tell us why.
Because I believe that if you are going to be the commander-in-chief, you have to have served in the military. And I tell you what, all of the military conflicts that we've been in, where Raising Cane has been involved, he is in and out. He gives the troops what they need. And he is not about playing around. He just wants to go in, get it done, and get out. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I know who he is. I just haven't looked at a lot of his politics, and I don't know that much about him. So maybe he'd be great. I'll have to do some more research on him for sure. Let me see. Oh, yeah. There's one other thing I wanted to show you guys real quick. So let me add this to the stage. Let's switch screens over here. So we've been talking about General McCaslin. On this show, we had Ashton Forbes on to talk about him. Super interesting and unfortunate circumstances where we have a retired Air Force general. He vanished. Now I think it's going at least on almost 2 weeks, I think, at this point. So it was February 27th. Retired Air Force Major General William Neil McCaslin vanished within a 1 hour window while his wife was out for an appointment, leaving behind his phone and glasses while a gun in his wallet remained unaccounted for. So this is the first time that we're hearing about this. And by the way, it was just yesterday, I think it was, the first time that this was reported on national news. A couple other smaller news networks and on television, by the way. I do think the New York Post picked it up fairly early, but there was nothing on cable news. And this was kind of a big deal. we were so worried about Savannah Guthrie's mother, and that got so much attention. Whereas we have a U.S. general that was retired, apparently retired in 2013, with a lot of classified information that he knew about. And people are, debating what he knew and what he was a part of and all these other things. A lot of speculation that he was part of different UAP and UFO programs. That remains to be seen. But the fact is he's been missing for over 2 weeks, and it's just now making national news, which I think is super weird. But we do know that he's been missing, and apparently this is the first time that we're hearing that he actually left with a firearm. And well, it says a firearm is unaccounted for. And all his wearable devices were found in the home. His wallet, hiking boots, and a 38 caliber revolver were unaccounted for. So super strange. And if it was somebody that just walked off and got lost in the woods or something like that, clearly he was an avid hiker. I don't know. Hopefully they find him and he's okay, and there was nothing in it. If they do find him not in good shape, I'll just leave it like that. Hopefully we'll find out that it wasn't something more nefarious than that, and maybe he just fell and something happened out on a hike or something along those lines. But that seems extremely unlikely to me at this point. But who knows? Who knows what actually happened with all of that? Let me see what we got going on here. All right, so Joshua Carr's video is ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and play this, and I will share this tab instead, and we'll see what Joshua Carr has to bring to the table on this. I haven't watched his other videos. I've seen pieces of them. I've been meaning to sit down and watch them, but
investigation into who Candace Owens really is, her blatant lies, and who is funding her. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, I have put a link in the description below for you to check out. And for those of you who did watch it, I want to thank you. It is the #2 most hyped podcast on all of YouTube for last week, and it has reached over 100,000 views. Today, guys, I'll be revealing never before seen irrefutable proof that Candace Owens routinely fabricates evidence against people, lies, and slanders them knowingly. I've got the receipts. I will be showing them. And stick around to the end, because I'll also be showing you how I catfished her and her tip line to prove how fraudulent her investigation of Erica Kirk really is. Now, looking at Candace's shady past last episode was important in understanding her motivations.
we're going to hook him up with a real big super chat here. Anyways,
and who she is. But this week, I decided to look into how she does her investigations. And I talked to those who she has actively tried to hurt in order to make money. I spoke with more than half a dozen people, some of which I will be able to reveal today on the show. And what every single one of them had in common is that they were terrified of what Candace would do to them if they spoke out, because they understood that she would stop at nothing to become more rich and more famous. Well, last night, guys, I had a dream about Candace Owens, and that's the basis for today's episode. No, I'm joking, of course, because that would be obviously insane. But that's what Candace does. No, what I want to tell you about is a story about a guy named Robbie Hild. Robbie Hild was there on the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
All right, so before we get too deep into this, one thing I would definitely recommend, anybody that is doing what we're doing, and one of the things I would recommend at some point today, whether it's now or later, go over there, make sure you like his video, make sure you share his video. I'm going to share it on X and other places, and then throw him a $5 super chat, $10, whatever you can afford. Go support this guy. Look, this is what the left is doing. And I mean the left, I mean Russia, Iran, CCP, they are artificially boosting the creators that they like and boosting those messages by doing exactly what we're doing here. And that is liking their videos, sharing their videos, giving them super chats, and a whole lot of other things that they can do probably at a more sophisticated level. So that's the least of what we can do, right? So go go support this guy. Go make sure you're subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything. But then on top of that, let's watch this. Let's see what he has to bring to the table. I do, from the clips that I've seen of some of his other content, been excellent. It's been excellent. So it's worth the 5, 10, 15, whatever you got. Throw some money his way, buy him a cup of coffee, whatever it is. Go support these people. But the more people like this that are getting our support, the more that we can help one another and build some synergistic energy going around like they're doing, the better off that we are.
Fascinated. He was one of Candace Owens' first targets. When Candace Owens began her investigation into the assassination of Charlie, one of the first videos she saw was of Robbie Hild's friend named Shaner. Shaner decided to do some citizen journalism of his own and walked through the crime scene after the assassination, retracing the steps of Tyler Robinson, and Candace saw this video. One of the things she noticed from the video was that Shaner had 2 friends with him. One of them was Robbie Hild, who she thought looked like the pictures of the suspected assassin released by the FBI. So she decided to reach out to Shaner to ask about what he had found out and maybe get a little bit of information about Robbie Hild, who she thought at the time was suspect numero uno. Here is Candace Owens talking about it on her show.
And I reached out to his nephew, Shane, and I asked for them to identify the guys in that photo. Like I said, I was interested in who those individuals were because I couldn't find it on his friend list. And in response, Shane immediately takes his profile private. And Phil Lyman, leaves me on red.
Not only could Candace not even get this guy's name correct, but she outright lied on her show to her audience. She says that Shaner ghosted her, that he didn't want to give Candace any info on his friend. Well, I have the DM from Candace to Shaner. This has never been released publicly before, and I'm going to show you guys. This is exactly what she sent. She said, "Hey, Shane, looking at all of the footage that you post as I'm investigating Charlie's murder, can I have your number, please? Wanted to ask some follow-up questions." Shaner immediately said, you can see 5 hours later, absolutely, and included his number. After that, Candace Owens never responded. Candace outright lied about what went on in that DM, and Candace doubled down on this in a later episode, making it very clear that she was set on lying about both Shaner and Robbie.
Regarding Shaner Broderick, who is, according to Phil Lyman, a cousin who...
I just want to bring up another point from yesterday's episode that I think is really important and relevant to this too. Candace Owens has been complaining that TPUSA hasn't been sharing photos and videos with her, that the FBI won't share photos and videos with her, that there's other people out there that have photos and videos and they won't share it with her. And yet, yesterday, for the first time ever, we saw some footage that she's been sitting on for 6 months. For 6 months, she hasn't shared any of that footage. That footage right there that we saw yesterday with all the blood in the back seat and other information that has never been shared at that level of detail, that would have dispelled a lot of myths. Like, oh, there's no blood. All right, clearly there was blood. Clearly there was blood. And that's ridiculous on his face. But the point is that she is, from everybody else, all these other people that are demanding photos, videos, and everything else, and all of her surrogates, nobody's even pointing that out. Like, you've been sitting on this footage and these pictures for 6 months, and you never shared them with the public so that we can all look at what's going on here and have the information, just like in the same way that she's never shared that there's stairs going up to the rooftops and that she can stop the trope of, oh, you got to scale the roofs like Spider-Man. So she's always omitting information intentionally. And even though she's complaining about other people withholding information, she's doing it herself.
He refers to Phil as his uncle across interviews. Doesn't matter. They're family members is the main point, and they know each other. And Shaner Broderick has, of course, mysteriously deleted all of his socials except for Instagram, but he's wiped his Instagram. Okay.
Shaner literally sent her his number, and Candace was the one that ghosted him because it did not fit her narrative. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. Candace continued to double down and say that Robbie Hild was invisible, that nobody knew who he was, nobody knew where he was on September 10th, and that he was definitely the culprit.
Oddly, when I say oddly, I mean this has never happened in the history of all of our investigations. No one emailed us to say that they knew either of those two individuals, neither the blonde that's with Shaner or the person that is wearing the blue hat that is with Shayner. I said, that's weird. Nobody in the whole wide Candace Owens universe of investigation. It was making me believe maybe those two individuals are like, I don't know, from overseas. Like maybe they're not even American.
I have in my possession right now, and for obvious reasons, I cannot show it to you, but it is in my email. I have Robbie Hill's birth certificate. I have his passport showing that he is a U.S. citizen. Candace knows this and has deliberately lied about it. This is information she could have had, but chose not to even get it from Shayner. I also have multiple emails in my possession sent from associates of Robbie to Candace Owens' tip line stating they know who Robbie is, that he's just a normal dude. He's not invisible. He doesn't really have social media. There's a lot of people who just don't really like social media. That was Candace Owens' justification for saying he's invisible. But I have multiple emails, and I can't read the exact contents of the emails, but they are people who are fans of Candace's, and they're basically pleading with her not to lie about Robbie, saying that they were next to him at the Charlie Kirk event, saying they support Candace Owens' investigation at the time, but she's wrong about Robbie. And Candace outright.
Throw up some super chats real quick. Tammy, our good friend Tammy McDonald. My son is in the military, and he said the troops love Hegseth. I agree, and I've heard he's amazing. I've heard that from a lot of friends that are still in the military. Erica should start a YouTube show critical of Candace. I'm sure she'd get lots of influencer support, and she'd have evidence and reason on her side. Yeah, she's too classy for that, and she's doing bigger and better things for sure. But I feel the same sentiment for sure.
Lies and says she never got any emails. That you saw the clip. She straightforwardly said, this has never happened before in an investigation. I've never heard anything about someone. We know she did. I have the email sent to her tip line from people saying, stop lying. What are you doing? He's just a normal guy. Why are you doxing him? In fact, I actually have a photo and a video of Robbie at the event and nowhere near where the gun was shot from. And Candace had this data as well. Here's the photo. You can see, and it's a high quality photo. You can actually really zoom in on it. And they've even labeled the different people. You can see SB, that's Shayner, RH, that's Robbie. And you can see their faces. And they're quite close to Charlie. They're nowhere close to where Tyler Robinson was. And Candace Owens had this data and refused to admit it. Yeah. Here is the video of Robbie as well. That is Robbie working on his laptop, nowhere near where Tyler Robinson was. Candace Owens knew this. And she never, not only did she not come out and retract what she said, she continued to double down on this crazy conspiracy that Robbie was involved in this. And this is just one example of what Candace's investigation has been. She has completely fabricated everything to follow different narratives in order to string out an investigation into views and money, as we talked about last episode. The sad thing about all of this is she has ruined Robbie's life to do it. And she did not give a crap. Again, so there's no doubt here. Here is Candace lying once again about Robbie, despite having all the facts she needed in order to say that he was innocent.
Of this individual, and I am certain, can't say 100%, okay, because we need to find this person's name, but this is a match, okay? The ears, the chin, just everything about this individual is a match. But he is as of yet identified as unidentified, as a Gothic person, and he is also as of yet unidentified as the close friend of Shayner Broderick, who cannot be found anywhere else, or people are not familiar with this person. So I'm thinking,
isn't that crazy, folks? She knows that his number is sitting in her inbox, and she's just refusing to call him. But she's going to sit there and say that this guy is impossible to be. You can't find him anywhere. Can't find him anywhere. Hey, real quick, one thing I do want to say is, look, we got 884 across a couple different different channels that are actually watching, different platforms that are watching this right now. If you support what he does, not only that, here's what I want you to do too. Not right now, but later on, I want you to go find a device, throw this on, and give him a view, or you can go watch it again. So watch it with us. Go watch it. I don't want to steal any views from him. I want to make sure we treat him right. in all ways possible. And on top of that, I'm going to make sure that I share this. So make sure that you guys share this content, please, because I think it's really important. And it goes a long way. It really does. Like people, when you're sharing stuff and one or two other people see it and they come join and watch it, like that matters a lot, folks.
Maybe he also came from overseas.
All she had to do was call the number that Shaner gave her. Okay. She keeps saying she doesn't know who he is. All she had to do was call Shaner and ask. That photo of Robbie that she shows is a picture of his Halloween costume uploaded to a friend's blog from years ago. That is her evidence. And she spins it into him being goth for whatever reason. I've seen his passport. I have seen his birth certificate. I know his parents' names. I know his mom's maiden name. I know the hospital that he was born in. And she knows this information as well, and she ignored it. I'm a one-man show, and I got this information. Candace Owens has a team of 5 people. Candace is a liar. And if she's done this about one person, she has done it about them all. Before I show you another example, I want to give you a small update on Robbie. Due to the lies of Candace Owens, Robbie, his family, and his friends weren't able to live at their homes for weeks and even months in some cases. Candace's followers, they like to, follow suit for what she had done in her past careers. We talked about last episode, and they dox people. That's what they do. They doxed him, the people he loves, and people in his own community were even searching for him, like a witch hunt. Candace's lies do have consequences. That is why we are doing this series. This isn't just about an upside for her in grifting money. It's also about the destruction of anyone in her path. She does not care who it is. I've spoken to many people who know Candace very well, and they are not willing to come forward like Robbie has because they know she will say anything to slander them. She will literally lie about anything.
That's exactly right. Look, Candace has said on her show multiple times now that I was paid by TPUSA. She stated one time that Erica hired me directly for PR. Those are freaking lies, people. And it's spread out. I see it all the time now. I see it all the time on X. Oh, you're paid by TPUSA. It's like, it's a known fact. And I'm still considering sooner over it because that is very damaging to someone like me that is trying to do investigative, independent journalism. And now you're saying that I'm a mouthpiece for somebody else. They understand that. And it's such an effective smear. But she will lie. And she knows that's not true because just like him, just like the other guy that she's talking about, I've talked to Candace in DMs. And we talked about all this. And I know she knows it's a lie, but she's just saying it because she knows it'll be an effective smear and undermining my credibility. And she knows it's a lie. And there's nothing truthful about anything that she does. And we know how that whole game works. It's funny that Lori Matthews says, Gary, maybe a hot cup of tea with raw honey and lemon would be help with the flu. So I got some Mucinex in me, or I would be down for the count. That's the only reason I can even talk. And that's what this is right here. It's honey, lemon, green tea, decaffeinated, and turmeric tea. So I'm following your advice, Lori. Thank you. And Jen, anytime you have something to say, just speak up.
And they don't want to go through the doxing and the lies once again. Now, before I show you how I catfished her, I want to show you one more example of her blatant lies. One big question that Candace had at the beginning of her investigation was why Tyler Robinson had.
All right, let's talk about Chevy, guys, because I did Chevy. I did this. I went to UVU. I talked to multiple people out there, and I had no idea what was true and what was not true. I wasn't intent on finding anything. I was open to all possibilities. I was open to Israel. I was open to anything. All I wanted to do was follow the facts. And I've done that, Chevy. I've done that more than anybody that I know. I went there. I talked to people. I saw the on-ground truth. I went up the stairs, talked to multiple people that just happened to be there, that were actually there that day. And then I've talked to multiple eyewitnesses since. And everything. And then somewhere around that time too, we had the charging documents come out. And then I took that investigation further because everybody was saying, hey, the evidence in this charging document was false. And so then I had a lawyer on, a defense lawyer, Andrea Burkhart. Please go watch that video. And we went through and she explained why it wouldn't be false and how that the defense is going to be able to go through this and prove whether it is legitimate or not legitimate evidence as well. So where I'm at on this somewhere around November or so, like the evidence was so clear to me. And I shared all that evidence with everybody else. Like what you see and hear is what you get. That's where the evidence says. And going there, and then on top of that, I made sure that we flew a drone, did a map survey, and created a 3D model. It was very expensive, time consuming. I paid for it out of my own pocket, on top of CJ Correnti helping out. He's got tens of thousands of dollars into that. And then we put that available to the public. So now that people can see, like when they say, oh, there's a shooter over here, or there's a shooter over here, they can put a shooter right there in that spot and see if there's a line of sight. And folks, there just isn't. There isn't a line of sight. And then on some of these other places, when you're there in that spot and you see how small that area actually is, like some of these things that they're saying, whether it's a shooter over here off of this building, number one, there's not a line of sight. Number two, you would see them. Like the proximity of everything is so close. So my point is I have went through this evidence. I went through thousands of hours at this point. I've spent thousands of dollars. I spent thousands of hours investigating this and following the evidence. And everything says that it's Tyler Robinson. Now, what we don't know is whether or not there were other people involved, or whether or not he was targeted and radicalized and weaponized online or something along those lines. I think that's very possible. And I think there's definitely more people involved. I think at a minimum, we know Lance Twiggs is involved. So all the evidence that can be collected is collected. Like everything else is a bunch of made up nonsense. Now we can sit around and we can debunk all these things all the time. And I do to some extent, and I definitely point out the lies, but somewhere in there, it stopped being any search for evidence, because Candace Owens has never been there. She's never sent like investigators, people that are professional investigators, former FBI, whatever else. She's never had lawyers on. She's never done anything that you can say, hey, this is a key step or just a normal step in an investigation. I've done all those things. And now we're at a point to where unless new information comes out, and it probably won't until the trial, all we can do is take what we know, what we've collected, and then compare it to what we see in the trial. Because right now, this is the only thing, this is the Tyler Robinson theory, the narrative, whatever you want to call it, is the only thing that makes sense across the board of everything. All these other things, you have to grasp it. You have to believe that it was an exploding microphone, or that the French Foreign Legion were involved, or whatever else. Like you have to make things up to fit information voids. And there's a lot of information voids. And then on top of that, what you have to do is you have to completely get rid of or deny mounds of evidence that just makes sense. It just makes sense. And I know people want to turn this into something much more complicated and things like that, but it's just not that complicated. We had a guy that was crazy, that, he was a gay guy dating a furry trans dude. And then he decided to go be a hero and take out Charlie. And there wasn't a lot of planning required for that. There's nothing complicated, nothing sophisticated about this. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. And, anytime that there's new information that comes out, I'm willing to look at it. But what you can't give me a shred of evidence that the French Foreign Legions were involved. Where were they? Were they there? Like, what evidence do you even have that they were involved at all? You haven't shown us anything. Oh, what about the U.S. military? You haven't shown us a single thing. Whatever other theories, Freemasons. The Freemasons are now involved. You show us a Bible that you said was only available to certain people that you can find online, and then people are drawing, pentagrams in the UVU courtyard. It's just bonkers. It's like some of this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like I have a hard time wrapping my head around this. Jen, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I started watching you, was because you were the only one out there actually going to the site, putting out truth, not saying that your stance was, exactly correct, and that you were 100% willing to look at the evidence and say, hey, I got this wrong, or hey, I got this right. You were the only one out there doing that. Everyone else was like either way one side, like, no, it was an exploding mic. No, they were giving hand signals. And I know some of the guys from Charlie's team, that there is no way those guys would do anything to hurt Charlie. And so that's literally how I found your show, and I became a fan, and now I'm here.
Yeah, like you don't have to be some classically trained or go to school or spend years in the FBI to figure out like some basic steps in an investigation, like how to find facts. And Candace hasn't done any of those things. And where all this started was, and where it still is I could tell that I knew she was telling lies and she's spinning narratives. And all I've done since then is like, hey, you know what? She's lying about this. She's lying about this. Or the other thing that I constantly say is, if you're going to say that, give me evidence. Give me evidence. And what do I get back in return? You're paid by Israel. You're paid by TPUSA.
I think Candy's trying to kill you.
They're trying to take me out, folks. All right.
You're muting.
I almost died. My life flashed. All right. You know what? You guys know what's going on. They don't have a logical response to that. And their other response is, oh, she does show the facts. Well, again, I was into it in the comments with somebody on YouTube today. This person's like, well, she does. She's laid it out. She's laid out facts about everything. I'm like, okay, for instance, tell me one single piece of evidence that you can tell me that Lori has done anything wrong ever. You've given us this big spreadsheet in this link chart showing all these LLCs that she allegedly have. We don't even know if that's true. I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't matter. If she had 100 more, it wouldn't mean that she's done anything illegal, wrong, or corrupt. But show me one piece of evidence that says she's done anything wrong or that she's evil or that she's vile, other than her stating, people say that she's vile. She tweeted that out the other day. I showed you guys that. Like, there is not a single shred of evidence that Erica Kirk has done anything wrong. And then on top of that, you take it further, there's definitely no evidence that says Erica Kirk is involved with Charlie's murder. You can come up with all these different things. The big thing that people are saying is that there's proof now that she's lied about her education. I disagree with you. All right. Just because you can't find the records to back up your claims or back up what she said, and she's not sharing it with you, doesn't mean that she's lied about any of it. Even if she did lie about one of those things or all of those things, it doesn't mean, like, where do you get the jump from she is now evil? Because have you people out there ever told a lie? I have. All right. Maybe she did lie about that. I don't know. If she did, she should apologize. She should say, you know what, I did. I, whatever. I padded my resume. I said I was, summa cum laude when I wasn't, whatever it is. But that doesn't make her evil. It doesn't make her involved in Charlie's murder. And that is ultimately the claim. Through innuendo, through insinuation, through all the other things that Candace Owens is doing, whether she's saying it directly or not, that is the claim. And then on top of that, she's also saying that it's because Lori was so evil, she raised an evil daughter, and then that evil daughter has to be guilty of doing something evil to Charlie. That's the essence of this. And you can't show me one single thing that says Lori is evil, done a single thing corrupt or illegal. You can't.
You know what I think is wild? The fact that she is literally going down her entire ancestral line. I mean, if she did that for any one of us, could you imagine the things that she could find and twist it into some? I mean, one of my relatives got hung for horse thieving. That's how long my family's been in this country. Could you imagine the stories? Then it would be like the Cowboys did this. They planned it from like 1780 to kill Charlie Kirk. It's the way her brain works is wild.
Yeah, and we've been reduced. Like, it's crazy for me to watch that the U.S., the principles in which this country were founded are being completely turned upside down and nobody's worried about it. So now we're going back to the sins of the father. So that's being accepted as, I don't know, credible. So we're saying, like, because some great-great-grandfather in 1935 was arrested or whatever else, that somehow that taints her entire lineage. I mean, what are we in North Korea? And then on top of that, what we've completely turned on its head is our justice system. What happened to you're innocent until proven guilty? Now the burden of innocence is on you. I can throw out any accusation to you, and then the burden of your innocence you now have to prove to me. And that's what's going on. And then on top of that, it's like she's completely blackmailing everybody and extorting everybody. It's like, all you got to do, I'll quit saying that, you know, you're guilty of murder. You just got to prove to me that you're not guilty of murder. And when you do that, this will stop. Like, why won't you comply to what I'm asking you for? It's utterly insane. It's evil. And folks, this is why I've been on this so intensely. If that can be done in this, like, do you not understand the ramifications of our society as Americans if we're going to accept that? Like, that is ceding our way to totalitarianism. That, like, it's crazy to me that this is what we're accepting. I don't care if Erica is guilty. Provide evidence, and then you can make an accusation. Until you have evidence, shut up. Like, that's the way that this works, and it should work. But there is no evidence because there's so much evidence saying that there's somebody else that did it, and that person is locked up right now and going to go on trial. There was a hearing today where we have the defense trying to throw out the idea of actually having video in the courtroom. And it's just, I'm in bizarro world, and it's insane to me. Storm pooper on highway. I'm about to have a freaking, I don't know, heart attack over here. Testing a $10 super chat after arguing with a liberal chat box. But I think I can purchase super chats greater than $10. Well, thank you, Storm pooper. We appreciate you, buddy. It worked. It worked. You should probably do about 5 more over $10 just to make sure it's going to continue to work. The fact that there is proof she was avoiding avenues of fact finding from the very freaking beginning just shows how little she ever actually cared for Charlie to begin with. She came up with a narrative, she switched that narrative, but what she does is she comes up with one narrative, she pushes that narrative until it's exhausted, then she jumps to another narrative. And like, her followers don't even know what hit them. They're not even paying attention. They're not even paying attention whatsoever. We're going to have to get off here in just a few minutes. I got a members only thing to do. We got about 10 more minutes, folks.
Referred to his car as a vehicle in many of his chats uncovered by the FBI. You'll remember months ago, this was a big thing. She used this as evidence that the FBI had fabricated the text since no normal person would use the word vehicle instead of car. One of the things she did to prove this was she uncovered body cam footage from a car wreck that Tyler Robinson got in 2022, where he never once said vehicle, he just said car. Here's what Candace showed.
That he doesn't actually use words like vehicle, which should come as no surprise to anyone that has a brain. By the way, I'm sure you caught this, but there's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating from a car accident that he had. And during the discussion with the officer that showed up, Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle, because that's how most Americans, how most English speakers refer to a car, unless they're in the military or on the police force. So here is 2022 police body cam footage, in case you missed that, of Tyler making a crash report. Take a listen.
Your mom's on her way?
Yeah, she's gonna be a minute. She's got to shuttle over from where she's at to her car and then drive over.
Gotcha.
Now, that's not really evidence of anything. I think it's a little bit strange, to say the least. And I think Candace Owens asking that question is perfectly fine. That is, until I found the same footage that Candace used and found that he does say vehicle. She literally edited around it in order to lie, in order, again, to cover up for a leftist murderer. Here is what he said.
Intersection being bolts. There was a vehicle in the lane between like the leftmost through lane that was forward some.
That was not hard to find, folks. I can say with 100% certainty, Candace saw that, and she chose to edit around it, because if Tyler Robinson did this, and he did, then her entire grift is over. Her obsession with Charlie is over. The money is over. So everything she can do to fabricate evidence, to change evidence, to keep the grift going, she will do. The bottom line is this: don't let her followers gaslight you into saying she does research. It is all fraudulent. Robbie's story is just one of thousands. Usually tax season sucks, but my partners Quick Tax America makes it so much easier. This year, they're doing all federal tax returns for only $76, no matter how complicated your taxes are, and they do all the work for you.
All right. I want to say a big shout out to Jeremiah Steed, 9271, for becoming a new member. Thank you very much. And Biology Always Wins. Thank you very much for also becoming a new member. Speaking of which, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be shutting this down here in 10 minutes. I will be doing a members only. So you still have time if you want to become a member. We appreciate that. Sports channel. And we may play the rest of this. But the first thing I'm going to do during that hour that we have together is just open up the floor to talk to you guys. Jen, if you're available, I'd love to have you on as well. I also have some questions that of you all. Of some things that I'm thinking about doing with the show that I would like to get your input on. So we can talk about all those things. If Jen, if you're available, great. And if not,
I'll be there.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Say the word.
Shalom from Israel. Thank you for standing with us. You're welcome, MJ. You're welcome. It's just doing the right thing. If your government gets crazy, I'll call them out. But right now, with everything else that's going on, it's just a matter of the truth. The truth is what matters. Did any of y'all see Hassan P's rant on a vet in his chat? He said disgusting things to that vet. No, but Jen, if you want to try to look that up, we can play that in the members only, and we can go over some of that. All right, folks. I think with that being said, what I'm gonna do right now, so I can go use the bathroom, empty my bladder, before we get started on the members only show. We're going to cut it off right here. Look, I appreciate each and every one of you. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you tuning in every night. Make sure you're following us on X, Instagram, Facebook, which I don't do that much on Facebook, but this does air on Facebook, and Rumble as well. If nothing else, as a backup channel. So it gives us a backup for when we get banned off of YouTube, which is almost certainly going to happen at some point. They've done it multiple times, and I'm sure it'll happen again. They don't like the truth. They don't like freedom, and they love socialism, communism, and all things anti-American. But folks, listen, I'm serious. We see what's happening in the world. Stay armed, stay ready, keep your head on a swivel. I mean that. Make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings. Make sure your kids and your family knows what's going on. You don't need to scare them, but you need to prepare them for reality. That's what needs to happen. I think we're going to continue to see these terror cell attacks take place all over the United States. And there's a lot of other crazies out there too. So until next time, stay armed, stay ready, and we'll talk to you soon.